In this lesson we'll begin from the basics and define what SSL and TLS actually are. Let's start with the Internet. It is often shown as a cloud, but in reality, it consists of a large number of routers that continuously pass data between each other. On one side there is you, and on the other side, there is the system you are communicating with. Between these two endpoints, there are multiple routers, each owned and managed by different Internet Service Providers, ISPs. These ISPs are responsible for maintaining their routers, which forward data step by step across the network. When you send data to a destination over the Internet, that data is placed onto the network and travels through several routers. Each router receives the data and forwards it to the next one, continuing this process until it reaches the final destination. The key point here is this. Once your data is sent onto the network, you no longer have control over it. As the data moves across the Internet, it passes through multiple routers owned by different ISPs, meaning it is effectively handled by various external entities before reaching its destination. Most of the data transferred on the Internet is typically in the form of websites. In this case, the server could be a web server responsible for hosting a site like website.com. But what exactly is a website? A website is written in HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is transferred using HTTP, or Hypertext Transfer Protocol. For example, an HTML page is essentially just text that contains various tags and content designed to be displayed by a web browser. In order for a client to receive this HTML page, it needs to send an HTTP request. That request might ask for something like index.html from the host website.com. This request prompts the web server to send back a copy of the HTML page. The HTML page is then passed from router to router across the Internet until it reaches the client. Once it arrives, the client's web browser interprets it and displays it in a more visually appealing way. That's essentially what a website is, along with how HTML and HTTP work together. An important point to note is that no encryption occurs during this process. The HTML page and its contents are sent exactly as they are across the Internet. While it may not seem risky for simple content, websites often request sensitive information such as usernames, passwords, bank account details, or credit card numbers. If a user enters this information, it is transmitted in plain form across the network, meaning anyone along the path could access it. This is why most browsers show warnings when you try to enter such information on pages that use HTTP instead of a secure protocol. SSL and TLS solve the problem of unsecured data transfer by creating a secure, protected tunnel across the Internet. Through this SSL tunnel, a client and server can safely exchange information. This is what HTTPS represents: an HTML web page transferred using HTTP but secured with an SSL tunnel. However, SSL and TLS are not limited to protecting websites. They can secure other types of data transfer as well. This broader use is called an SSL VPN. A common use case is when a client connects to a corporate network. The client establishes an SSL VPN over the Internet to the corporate firewall, allowing secure access to internal resources like corporate email, databases, and files through the encrypted tunnel. Another common example is connecting to a public VPN provider such as ExpressVPN, NordVPN, or CyberGhost. These services let a client create an SSL tunnel to their network, so all Internet-bound traffic from the client passes securely through the tunnel to the VPN provider before reaching the wider Internet. We have two different names for what is essentially the same function, because of how the protocol evolved over time. SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer, and it was originally developed by Netscape back in 1994 to add security to Internet communications. Later, in 1999, the Internet Engineering Task Force (IETF), which is responsible for maintaining many of the Internet's core protocols, took over the development and maintenance of SSL. When they adopted it, they made improvements and updates to the protocol, and renamed it TLS, which stands for Transport Layer Security. So the reason both terms exist is due to this transition. SSL was the original name, and TLS is the updated version maintained by the IETF.